Hi everyone, and welcome to Celebrating Cultural Connections webinar for Integrated Education Month 2025. So I'm Nicola from Intofilm. I'll tell you a little bit more about who Intofilm are in a bit. But today's webinar is just an opportunity to walk you through our Celebrating Cultural Connections resource that we've developed for Integrated Education Month this year. So we'll do some quick introductions. We're gonna go through why games in schools, because that's our big theme for this year, as well as celebrating cultural connections. And we'll talk about some of the game activities that we've got on offer. We'll also talk a little bit about film, because Intofilm are a film education charity, and we still have some great resources to share with you. And then we'll talk a little bit more about our support offer and our competitions. Now, there's everything that I'm going to tell you about is going to be in that resource. So this is just an opportunity for us to talk you through a little bit more and walk you through it. If you have any questions, you can always contact us, and there'll be some contact details at the end. If you haven't had a chance yet, do download the resource, because as I say, everything's in there. This recording or this session is being recorded, so we'll send that out with the recording. So yes, just introductions, I guess. This is our third year collaborating, so it's NICE, and thanks to NICE Teacher Committee as well for their input, and Intofilm. So I'll just introduce Intofilm quickly. We're a film education charity. We work all across the UK. We're funded by the BFI to support teaching with film, animation, and games in the classroom. We do get additional funding from Northern Ireland Screen and NI, which has allowed us to develop a games program. So our collaboration with NICE for Integrated Education Month is, as I said, in its third year, and the previous 2 years have been focused on film. This year, we're really excited to be doing it with games. And again, that's thanks to the funding we've had from NI Screen, because we've got the most beautiful resources. They're really, really popular and really, really engaging. But yeah, I'm going to hand over now to Tiernan from NICE to tell a little bit more about the theme for this year, which has come from NICE.
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's great to be working with Interfilm again. Thank you, Nicola, and thanks to Sean as well for developing the resource. We had some really positive feedback the last 2 years for the big picture and for Bias Busters. So yeah, great to have you back on board to be collaborating with us in the Teachers Committee in order to put this together. It's a really valuable resource. As you probably know, or as you may not know, if you're a recently transformed school or a newly integrated school, every year we have Integrated Education Month, which is really a chance for schools to spotlight a theme and really dedicate specific time to that theme in order to celebrate integrated education, which is something we know you do all year round, but it's nice to have a focus point. And this year's theme was decided by the Teachers Committee, and that is celebrating cultural connections. You know that at the heart of an integrated school, it's about bringing people from different cultural backgrounds and communities together into one space and having that balance and that mix. But it goes beyond that. It's more than having the mix. It's what you do with the mix and the opportunity you have to form friendships, form relationships, form understanding between different groups of people and different individuals within the school. And we're hoping that this theme will enable you to explore that in a really proactive way. So it's an opportunity to spotlight what makes cultures within integrated schools and in Northern Ireland more generally special and unique, particularly bearing in mind that Northern Ireland's becoming more and more diverse culturally as time goes by. It's a chance for schools to focus on connections and the possibility of forming and nurturing friendships between students and between staff members even, but particularly the children and young people in schools, bridging those gaps between people from different cultural backgrounds and finding commonalities and ways to celebrate what makes them the same, what makes them different, what makes them special, and to foster understanding and friendships. And I suppose identifying where and when in school to foster those connections, whether it's during lessons or during extracurricular activities, but just taking advantage of the school space and that diverse mix that happens within your school. And we're hoping that this is a real chance for you to do that in a really active way. Thanks, Nicola. This is just a quote that we love to use because I think it symbolizes and represents so much about what we talk. But Maya Angelou said that in diversity there is beauty and there is strength, and we do believe that. creating a space that is diverse and in which diversity can flourish and can be celebrated and connections can be made is a space in which children can develop in a really holistic way that goes beyond the norm because it's not the norm in Northern Ireland and integrated schools have a chance to do something really special here. So yeah, really excited to hear more about what this resource can offer, particularly post-primary teachers.
Okay, thanks, Tiernan. So yeah, we've got a great theme. So celebrating cultural connections is great, and we've done our previous 2 years focusing those themes on film, but this year we're going to focus on games. And you might be thinking, why games? Well, games is, games in schools are fun. We know that young people are playing games, they enjoy games. They're deeply immersive entertainment. You're practically guaranteed 100% engagement from pupils when you introduce games to your classroom. What we also know, though, is that games are rich in storytelling elements. So we have huge opportunities for literacy learning to be happening whenever young people are engaging with games. They have worlds of their own. You've got character, color, camera, setting, sound, story, all the same sort of literacy topics that we'd be talking about with text or with film exist in games. And even when working sort of tech-free, something like a games review, so that's one of the things we'll talk to you about later. But even for like a games review, you've got your literacy learning because they'll be writing, critically analyze something and writing about it. But young people are also understanding and gaining like digital literacy learning because they're talking about the digital media that they engage with. And even in something like our Story Builder Games packs as well, we have broken up how to create a story for a game, but in doing that, they're also understanding the games that they play and all the different elements that make up that game as well. So we've got literacy opportunities, digital literacy learning opportunities, and games are just an opportunity for you to unlock this. So on top of those things, the Story Builder Games resources that we're going to talk to you about are completely open to the curriculum. So hopefully this year you're going to use it for celebrating cultural connections for Integrated Education Month, which is great. But you might see that actually in the future you could use this with any subject that you're teaching, any curricular topic that you'll be teaching. And it might sound like, it might sound sort of early days at this age group that you might be working with to be talking about screen careers if you're not teaching, like the upper ends of secondary school, but it's never too soon to talk about screen careers. And so the games work that we do, the film and animation work, is to highlight some of the opportunities that are happening, not just in Northern Ireland, but across the UK. So opportunities to work in the screen industries. So just to give you a bit of an overview of what the offer is from Into Film this year, we're starting with our webinars. So this week, this is the second webinar this week, and this is our secondary webinar. We have one on Tuesday for primary. So if you have a colleague who couldn't make it today, but would like to, or even after today, if you think this is something they'd be interested in, it is being recorded, so you can pass that on to them. If you know someone who's a primary teacher also wanting to celebrate, cultural connections for Integrated Education Month with games, we've got a recording from Tuesday's webinar too, so we can share that. But as I say, everything will be in that resource too, so we'll make sure that a link to the resource is sent out to everybody. So to give an overview, I will talk about these things in a little bit more depth, but to give you an overview, the first thing we're going to offer is Story Builder Games resources. Now, for our primary young people, we would have Games Junior, which is brand new. In fact, it's only like just being launched for Integrated Education Month. But we also have Games Lite, which is a great resource for upper primary, but also lower secondary. So we're finding that a lot of Key Stage 3 teachers are using Story Builder Games Lite. And we'll also have our fuller Story Builder Games pack, which is good for maybe like GCSE and A-level students. We'll also talk to you a bit about games clubs. So if we just remember that the theme is celebrating cultural connections, a club's a brilliant opportunity just to bring young people together for them to connect. And that will be supported with some literacy activities through our games review. And the other thing I want to chat about is our cultural diversity with film resources. So we do have quite a few resources. It'd be mad for us not to mention, because if you're talking about celebrating cultural connections, a brilliant way to kickstart that is through film. So I'll chat to you a little bit more about that. All the links to the resources will be in that larger Celebrating Cultural Connections resource. And a really exciting thing we have this year, which we didn't have in the previous 2 years, are competition prizes for young people. So I think in previous years we had some Amazon prizes for teachers, which we are still going to have an Amazon prize for educators. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Again, how to enter and all the details about that will be in the Celebrating Cultural Connections resource. But we will touch on that today. But we'll have 2 youth-facing resource or competition prizes this year. Both of them are a Nintendo Switch Lite. It's very exciting. And we still have a teacher prize of an Amazon voucher for the best sort of overall school engagement with celebrating cultural connections with film. So I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail about Story Builder games. So I mentioned, if you know anybody who's working in primary, or if you know your children go to a primary school that's integrated and they might be interested in this, we do have our Story Builder Lite and a junior version as well. But if you are teaching like lower age groups in secondary, so maybe like 13, 14, or sorry, up to about 13, 14, you might be interested in our Story Builder Games Lite. It's a really gorgeous resource. It's A3. You can download an A4 version online and, you know, just have it today. But if you want to, we are offering to come out to schools and do some workshops, which really just kickstarts delivery in the pack. So in a workshop, we would only go out for about an hour. And then we would go through maybe 2 or 3 sections of the pack and then leave it with them. So once young people get their hands on that pack, it's theirs. We tell them to put their name on it, start getting their ideas in there. And then when we leave, teachers can carry on some of that activity, whether in class time or club time, whatever works for you. So that's a really gorgeous pack. It's A3, fully printed in color, and it folds out to be a massive A2 sheet. And what we do with Story Builder is we give young people the tools really to write their own story step by step, almost with building blocks. And we start with like the story side of games, so genre, character, setting. And then what we do is we start showing them how that is paired up with the game mechanics of a game, you know, how a character or the things that exist in the world of a game are sort of paired together with the narrative. So we have that for Games Lite, which is good for, say, Key Stage 3, but we also have Story Builder Games, which is a bit more detailed, so it's a bigger pack. It's, again, a fantastic resource for taking you through with literacy skills and digital literacy, but it's completely open, as is Story Builder Games Lite, to bring your own subject, topic, theme to it. So it's a great opportunity to get young people focusing, and what they could do is essentially create a game around celebrating cultural connections. So we can provide resources for any class that are getting one of our workshops. If you're interested in availing of that offer, we will have our contact details at the end of this PowerPoint, but they'll also be in the Celebrating Cultural Connections resource as well. So the other offer we're talking about this year is our Games Club and our Games Review competition. So Story Builder, just, you know, anyone who has actually done Story Builder with their class and the pupils have come up with a story idea, that's going to be one of our competitions. So young people can win a Nintendo Switch Lite. We're going to give away one for the best Story Builder games idea around celebrating cultural connections. We're going to do the same for Games Club. But to get that far, what you have to do first and foremost is to set up a games club. We've talked about games being a great opportunity for young people to come together. It's a great sort of icebreaker activity. And we appreciate that not every school would have access to like the digital technology to get stuck straight in with, like, say, a console-based game club. So there's always the opportunity to start first and foremost with a boards game club. Now, we're big supporters of board games, and if you look at our resources, you'll see that we always mention board games first before we even start talking about anything digital, because we're very much aware of digital poverty. And it might be something that is, you know, highlighted to you as you start using games in the classroom. And digital poverty it's the lack of access to the internet, to devices and software. but you might realize that not every young person has a device or console at home. But in saying that's what makes bringing games into the classroom amazing, because you're giving young people an opportunity to have that shared peer experience that they maybe can't get outside of school, that maybe they aren't getting at home. So our board games, and as well, board games are a great opportunity to bring different cultures together in games that have come from like different parts of the world. So it's up to you whether you want to do board games, or maybe you could do a browser-based games club. You know, every school has access to Minecraft. There are some games on the BBC website that are safe, or maybe you know some games and you might want to share some ideas with us. We're always open to hearing what schools are doing with games in the classroom already. If you have access to it, console-based games club is, you know, an amazing thing for a school to have. Some schools, we know some secondary schools are already esports schools, so they will have maybe some Nintendo Switches in the classroom as well. Anyway, starting up a games club is something that, you know, we maybe can't go out and set up for you, but if you've any questions about doing it, or your thoughts about doing it, or how to get started, please do contact us, because we were actually talking about this in the office the other day, and saying how, you know, if you were a teacher and you were starting up a board game club, you could maybe put a sign in the staff room and says, look, is anyone any board games they're getting rid of? You know, it doesn't have to be an expensive thing to run a club. So if you do run a club and young people are coming together and they're playing together and they're connecting, that's an amazing thing. And why not use that as an opportunity to bring in some literacy activities? So we have our games review competition. Our games review competition has a resource of its own, which actually provides young people with some guidance and a structure for how to write a good review. And I mean, it's actually a good layout if they're reviewing anything, if it's a film review or a book review. So a lot of times what we get when young people are reviewing something is they just sort of retell the story they just watched, which isn't really what a review should be. So, you know, we talk to them about introducing the game, summarizing it, giving facts and opinions, you know, comparing it to another game, and then talk about who they were recommended to as well. So that's a great thing to have, just as for, it doesn't even have to be if you run a club, but if you look in our resource for Celebrating Cultural Connections, you'll see a link to our resource page for that particular resource, and you can download it and take a look. But yeah, so for our games review competition, we will give away a Nintendo Switch Lite to one of the young people from an integrated education school who's been celebrating Integrated Education Month. So these are quite exclusive prizes. Normally we don't give away a Nintendo Switch Lite until, like, I think we do it once a term for the best games review competition. So this year we've actually got two specifically for integrated education schools, and there's not a lot of integrated education schools, so there's a good chance that your pupils, you know, will go away with something, because as well as the Nintendo Switch Lite, we'll have some other game resources that we'll give away as runner-up prizes. So that is our games club and our competitions for that. Now, if you're a bit more ambitious, if you already have a games club in your school, because we've actually been out to a few schools recently and seen that some schools have clubs already, and what you can do is set up a games tournament. And we've provided a resource that's at the back of the Celebrating Cultural Connections resource, which is just what you can see on screen here. So it's a tournament bracket. It's kind of like if there was like football matches going on. It's just how you sort of start eliminating people and cutting down to like maybe two players to play for like the championship. So whether your club is focused on like digital gaming or board games, you could run a tournament with your school in March. Now, although it's competitive in nature, tournaments are actually a great way just to bring young people together in like a shared interest and create an encouraging environment, you know, where they're all supporting each other. They could be coming up with like a team mascot for the school or for their team. And if you happen to know of any other integrated education schools who are doing it, you can maybe team up with them for the winners to play off each other. But at the heart, the reason we suggested this year was that it was just a way, again, to bring young people together, because we've been doing a bit of research into esports in schools in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK, and it's about creating this kind of nice, exciting atmosphere in the school through games. Now we've been talking a lot about games, and you might be sort of thinking, oh well, I'm a bit worried about the age ratings on games, and maybe you're not familiar with that. So we are aware that that is something the teachers would be thinking about. And what we would say is just simply check up on games, the game ratings. So if you go to the PEGI website, you can go in and actually just put in the game title, and you'll find out what the game rating is for it. But if you actually have the game in front of you, you should see that it will be labeled with one of the labels on screen there for the age appropriateness. So it's not about like difficulty level, it's about age appropriateness. But that's not to say that a game that is rated 3 or 7, isn't something that secondary pupils will play, because things like the Mario games will tend to be 3s or 7s. But everybody, like Mario Kart, everybody plays Mario Kart, except me, because I'm really rubbish at it. But yes, there's a website for PEGI rating, and it is, if it's something that you're concerned about or you're interested in, I would suggest that you go and take a little look at that page. And actually, something Sean said on the Tuesday webinar was that, and I think this is good to note, but in our Story Builder Games resource, which is for secondary pupils, we never reference a game that is over a 12. And in our Story Builder Games Lite, we never reference a game that is over PEGI 7 rating. So yeah, we're always keeping things like that in mind when we're creating our resources for young people. So I mentioned earlier about our film resources. It just seems mad not to mention them, but we do have a really lovely range of either resources or film lists that support cultural diversity in the classroom. And these are just a selection, so do go onto our website. So if you go to intofilm.org, you'll see our website, and there'll actually be like a tab at the top for films and a tab at the top for resources, and you can explore based on, like, you can filter for age or subject or topic. But some of the ones that we just highlighted for the theme for this year were our Cultural Perspectives Assembly resource, our Cultural Diversity for primary and secondary film lists, and our Identity, Belonging and Integration film list as well. So film, even if you're going to do games and you're going to go down that route, film is still a great way to sort of just kickstart something like Integrated Education Month and start talking first and foremost about cultures and diversity, and making connections. It's just such a nice way, whether it's a short film or a feature film, to sort of get conversations started. So I'm talking about film, but I'm going to bring it back to games. There are also some really brilliant game-based films that we now have on IntoFilm Plus, and there's loads out there that young people will recognize. So as part of our digital poverty work, and we never mention digital poverty to young people. It's something that we address with teachers, but if you look at our resources, we'll never actually say digital poverty or try and spotlight that too much. But you might see something like a little section called Insert Coin, where we talk about, draw from your knowledge of board games, or do you play retro games, or do you buy second-hand games? Because we want to take away any of that stigma that, you don't have the latest console or the most expensive game. And in a similar vein, what we do when we reference characters in games, we try and make sure we use a lot of characters that you don't have to know because you've got the latest Zelda game. We try and use characters like Mario and Luigi, or Sonic, that young people might recognize from film or even just merchandise that they see out and about. So even if they haven't got the game, they'll know who Mario is. So you'll see that we've done that through our resources as well. But if you are interested in watching some of the films, some game-based films, or some of our cultural diversity film lists, do explore our IntoFilm Plus resource. It's an amazing free streaming service designed, especially for schools. So I'm going to skip this slide and go straight to this, because if you do have any questions, the best thing to do is to contact either me or Sean. Our addresses are on screen there at the bottom. But if you're ready to get started, or you want to ask some questions about getting a workshop booked in, you can contact us at games@intofilm.org. So yeah, all that's left to say really is good luck. And yeah, we're here if you need us for anything. But also, yeah, check out our Celebrating Cultural Connections resource because everything that you need will be in there.
Thank you very much, Nicola. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what everyone puts forward, hearing about what people put forward, hearing about how people participate with this resource. It's really exciting and yeah, really excited to see how you all gauge in Integrated Education Month generally. Thank you very much.